Hi, I'm Esin, and I review stuff, and it is time for another book review. This time, a novel that is almost 50 years old but still holds up exceptionally well. It is a riveting haunted house tale by the author Richard Matheson, whom you may know as the one who has written I Am Legend. You know, that thing that the Static X music video for the song Cold was a better adaptation of than the fucking movie that had almost nothing whatsoever to do with the source material. The said book is the 1971 novel Hell House. Now, I know what you're thinking, and no, it has no relation to that boring snooze fest of a found footage movie, Hell House LLC. The book does have a movie adaptation under the name The Legend of Hell House, which I will be reviewing because why the hell not? But other than that, the two titles are just totally unrelated works. Plot-wise, Hell House is actually a very basic haunted house tale, so much so that you have probably encountered the likes of this plot in several movies, comics, books, etc. But far as basic plot setups go, it is old but gold. A dying millionaire, Mr. Deutsch, is willing to pay $1 million to 4 different individuals who will be spending 1 week in the most haunted house in America, the Belasco Mansion, also known as Hell House, in order to prove or disprove the existence of life after death. On his deathbed, all Old Man Deutsch wants to know is whether or not consciousness lives on. In order to ascertain whether or not it does, he chooses to employ a bunch of people whose vocations are related to the spiritual realms. You have Dr. Barrett, whose main field is parapsychology, although he is a physicist by trade. There is his wife, Edith, joined by Florence Tanner, who is a spiritual medium, and, as an added bonus, Benjamin Franklin Fisher. The character of Fisher gets special billing because in-universe there has been 2 separate expeditions into the hauntings of Hell House, and the house is so fucking haunted that only 1 person out of the 8 that went in total during those expeditions has made it out without being crippled or driven insane, which is Fisher, who used to be a medium when he was 15. Now, immediately, the book establishes Hell House is being as haunted as it gets, with Mr. Barrett just flat out saying that it is the Mount Everest of haunted houses. The house apparently used to be the den of degradation and debauchery owned by one Emeric Belasco, who dedicated the entire goddamn mansion to endless pleasure and pain. As far as the setting goes, Hell House actually has it down pat. It is a mansion in the middle of a large estate that is only reachable through car through one isolated road. It's shrouded in mist, every single window has been bricked up, electrical devices refuse to work properly, and although they established that they have reconnected power to the house, it just doesn't work when the group gets there, so that they have to find their way around with candles. And the book, especially nowadays, comes across as a somewhat quaint little period piece, mainly because it does take place in 1971, and the technology available to the people who are tasked with sort of investigating a haunting in as scientific terms as possible is severely limited. I mean, even the more high-tech, cutting-edge type devices that are later brought into the house for spoiler reasons are just so quaint that they end up being cute. The group that we are spending our time in Hell House with are a quirky bunch, and their interactions, especially how their relationships develop through the course of their misadventures, let's say, within this haunted mansion, are quite interesting. However, the character interactions mainly have one single flaw, and it is this. Whenever some supernatural phenomena is discussed, Dr. Barrett always comes at it from a quote-unquote scientific perspective, whereas the medium, Florence Tanner, always insists on a supernatural explanation. Now, this is actually quite on par with their vocations. After all, one is a spiritual and devout Christian medium, and the other one is a borderline atheistic physicist turned parapsychologist. But the thing is, as the hauntings ramp up and as events progress from just a rocking chair moving by itself to furniture literally trying to kill the characters, Barrett's constant insistence that there must be a perfectly logical and scientific and or physical explanation for what is going on starts to hold less and less and less and less weight, and as a result his every insistence becomes more and more annoying. Not helping these matters at all is the fact that Mr. Benjamin Franklin Fisher is one terse, cantankerous son of a bitch. He has been so traumatized by his past experiences in the mansion that whenever Tanner and Barrett get into it, it usually ends up with Fisher telling them both that they're fucking idiots, that they have no idea what they're fucking with, and that he does. Of course, this is a ghost story after all, and a ghost story is only as good as the ghost, not the ghost hunters. And boy, does Hell House have one hell of a ghost. Emeric Belasco as a main antagonist manages to have that lovely quality of never being overt and in your face, but always being present around you. You can always feel his mischievous, almost sadistic little touch in every little single thing that goes wrong or goes awry. Whenever a chair moves, a door creaks open, something flies off the shelf, whenever more overt manifestations of hauntings occur, the type of stuff that you are used to seeing in horror movies happen, you always feel Emeric Belasco sort of smirking in the shadows as he's doing all that. And that creates a menacing presence that sort of looms over every single proceeding in the book. As a result of this, Richard Matheson manages what seems to be improbable in that he manages to have a villain overshadow everything without ever coming out into the open. Speaking of the narrative, Matheson doesn't exactly frame this as a bona fide horror story. It is a horror story at heart, but the narrative approaches matters as more of a mystery. Plot isn't just a bunch of characters just sitting in a haunted mansion getting mauled by every single fucking thing, trying to find out how much they can withstand before one of them breaks. They are actively trying to figure out how to get themselves out of the mess that they have put themselves in. In fact, one of the primary points of contention between Barrett and Florence Tanner is Tanner's insistence that one of the spirits trapped in the house, Belasco's son Daniel, is trying to reach through her to them in order to ask for their help. And mysteries like that, or where Emeric Belasco managed to get his power from, keep the book going. Hell House starts a bit slow, but it follows a 45-degree tension curve in that the tension increases as time goes along. This means that every successive chapter has progressively bigger and darker and more violent events happening until the explosive crescendo of an ending. As a result of this, the plot is always moving, it's always taking different twists and turns, and there are quite a few bends that you are not going to be expecting. So keep you on your toes? Yes, it does. One thing about the narrative that has left me wanting, though, is Richard Matheson's constant insistence of describing the sizes of things such as objects or rooms in terms of specific measurements. Look, I would rather you just tell me that the dinner is taking place on a long table in the middle of a big dining hall rather than to tell me it's a 25 by 30 feet room with a 12 by 6 foot table in the middle. I mean, I'm glad he figured this shit out in that manner. I just don't like it and can't exactly picture it in the way that I think he might have intended. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a very nice gothic haunted house tale with just a dash of mystery and a smidge of science fiction thrown in. It might have been written in 71, but it still holds up as a compulsive page-turner of a book. So if you are in the mood for some oldish style horror, I suggest you check Hell House out. If you have read I Am Legend and liked Richard Matheson's style, I think you're gonna like this one also. So if you've read this one, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any recommendations for me based on what I have just told you, I would also love to know what they are. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like my content. really helps a lot. And until next time, it's Eason. Peace out.